Power Ranger weapons are very unique from how they function, their scale, their abilities, they can combine, they have special finishers. But I always wondered, like, what would be the best weapons from Power Rangers that would be the best of the best? There's a lot of weapons out there that are cool and have all these flashy functions, but a lot of them can be really ridiculous, especially with the way they have to load or their size, for example. I wouldn't like to be using any of the giant bazookas that require the entire team to hold, or there's so many different things that you have to do in order to load them.
Blade Blaster.
So let's start off with the creme de la creme, the most basic item in any PR season, the Blade Blaster. Probably one of PR's most recognizable weapons is MMPR's sidearm. It's really straightforward. It has 3 modes: sword, blaster, and thunderslinger combination. And the reason why I picked it is because, for the most part, it's simplistic nature, meaning it can always be put on your, as your sidearm. It has an alternate mode that can be used as defensive or an offensive finisher. And on top of it, if you combine it with the Thunderslinger, it has its own finisher mode, which is pretty much on par with the Power Blaster's finisher, so you really don't even need to use your main primary weapon in order to finish a monster off. I also love its look in general, and of course having its own finisher as long as you can combine the Thunderslinger with it. I mean, even the Thunderslinger itself is its own sidearm, which you can use pretty easily as well. I think it's one of the best sidearms that Power Rangers has ever come up with.
Drive Detector.
For this one, the Drive Detector, I think, was a very unique item in any PR season. I do like when PR comes up with a unique either combination or, element / gimmick for a season where it actually works into the overall theme of the season, because Operation Overdrive was the whole thing of looking for the Corona Aurora. Having a metal detector built into your main sidearm was a really good combination because, again, in PR's case, the metal detector would not just be detecting coins and stuff, it would be also used to detect exotic metals, monsters that are underground or potentially anywhere else and even another dimension. Plus it can transform into a blaster, and it's a very good staff weapon. So Mercury Ranger's sidearm, I think, was very unique from its look to what its abilities. The only thing it lacked was any type of main combination feature, but really for its other functions, it makes up for it.
Electro Booster.
Now, the Electro Booster I really enjoyed from Time Force. Unlike the Chrono Blaster as their main sidearm, the Electro Booster gives you a lot of things. Mainly, a really good finisher, but it also gives you, an actual extra use from the Chrono Sabers, because the Chrono Sabers are really cool finishers on their own, but they're not long-range weapons. They're swords, and all they can really do is be up close and they can strike you. With the Electro Booster add-ons, not only do you get all the additional equipment from all the pieces that attach to the Chrono Saber, they combined into the Chrono Saber, giving it a long-range weapon and a really useful finisher move that actually interfaces with the Time Force suits, so they can actually basically snipe from far away.
Cloud Hatchet.
I definitely had to put the Cloud Hatchet on the list. Mainly because, again, it's a fairly simple weapon and you really don't need much to it. All it is just basically your sidearm, which is a fairly long dagger. So you have 3 power-ups that it can do solo. It's also the best feature, I think, from any sidearm is the ability for you to fly with it. And the only additional thing that you add to the weapon is your morpher, and you usually have that on you as well. It's a really cool all-in-one sidearm. I think it's a very powerful weapon for out of all the RPM weapons. Yeah, there are other weapons that are much more powerful, but compared to what you have to do or what you have to bring, it's a much more better choice.
Sonic Fin.
Now, the Ninja Storm weapons are all pretty cool on their own. However, I think the Sonic Fin out of all of them is the best choice. Not only can it be used as an offensive weapon, it can be used as a defensive weapon. It's one of those few weapons out there that can immobilize you and even, throw you in the air and hold you in place. And not only is it a weapon, it can defend you against multiple people because the Sonic Fin shoots out, sound waves that pushes people away. So you could potentially use it to stop loads of people all in one go, potentially pin them down without even hurting them, and you could probably also boost yourself away if you can aim it at the floor. Even though it can be funny at times because you can yell through it and then say funny, goofy things like Ninja Storm did, I think it's a really powerful weapon that Tori got.
Delta Enforcer.
Now, another weapon that actually can be used as a defensive weapon, which is the Delta Enforcer, which gets added on with the SWAT team armor. And I thought it was a really cool weapon because, again, it takes the concept of SPD, which they added on from Deca Ranger, of the confinement cards, which was a unique thing that, instead of just blowing up the monsters, they can actually confine them in cards and then take them to a specialized jail. And the Delta Enforcer basically improves on that, 100-fold. Not only does it interface with the, SWAT Megazord in order to do the SWAT Megazord's finisher, it has its own finisher where you can just load up the confinement card, shoot it, and just pretty much grab any monster at, pretty much from long range, short range. It has double barrels, so it kind of acts like a machine gun. Yeah, it's fairly large, but I still think it's a really good use because it's basically would be like, if it was in real life, it would be basically like a rifle gun. But even if you wanted to focus solely on Deca Ranger, it still has a very powerful main weapon that was like on par to like a lot of finishers in general from other past seasons.
Magi Staff.
Now, the Magi Staff, you pretty much can't go wrong with it because it has 3 distinct modes that the entire team could use, although they never really showed that anyone could use all the other modes, but they can be. And I did like it because, it can be an offensive weapon, a defensive weapon, and a long-range weapon from the crossbow mode, the sword mode, and the basic Magi Staff mode, which allows you to channel your magical energies. So it allows you to improve on your magical powers so you can dictate where your magic goes. So I thought, even though it's a fairly simple sidearm weapon and it's not a traditional weapon in the normal sense, I think the Magi Staff is very cool in how it can be used in order to help the user.
Lights of Orion.
Now, one of the biggest power-ups that any PR season had gotten was the Lights of Orion. And the thing that I really enjoyed about the Lights of Orion, even though it's a team-wide power-up, no one is restricted on what they can do. Everyone can do their own version of the power-up mode. Each ranger has its own armor that's equipped. It improves Quasar Saber, improved Quasar Launcher, and of course the claws that you get on your left arm. So it gives you not only better weapons, it gives you much more better, defensive abilities, and it's probably one of the most powerful finishers that any ranger has, compared to most sidearms and or most solo abilities.
Turbo Navigator.
Now, you might think the Turbo Navigator as number 2, why would you pick that? It's such an odd item. Well, the reason why I think the Turbo Navigator is really high on the list is because of its functionality. Now, again, everyone doesn't really care for Turbo that much, but for what it brought, from all the vehicles and the weapons, it did a pretty cool job of, bringing in some unique stuff. And the Turbo Navigator was one of them because it's, it can locate monsters, it can figure out, hidden things, bombs, weaknesses of various either Zords or monsters. It could do a lot of different things for the the story. It's a really good item to have in your backpack, but also because it doubles as not just one weapon, 2 weapons, because it can transform into its own weapon of its choice, and it does pretty good damage on its own, but it can actually also combine with the auto blaster, which allows it to have a finisher move, and it can blow up a monster fairly easy. So you have not only have a really good item that can do a lot of tools in the field and help you locate or even fix things, but you also really have a powerful weapon at your side.
V-Lancer.
Out of every weapon that PR has made, and there's a ton of weapons that I thought were really unique, cool, that can work, I think the V-Lancer would be the best choice of all, because not only is it a staff weapon that actually has a sword at the end, so not only can you use it as a defensive weapon, an offensive weapon, as a finisher, not only does it have one finisher, it has 3 finishers in it. You have the finisher with the stat version, you also have the finisher with the boomerang one, which was unfortunately not seen in Lightspeed Rescue, but then also you can do your own single spectrum blast with it as well. It's a really versatile weapon. Yeah, it can be kind of bulky to carry around, but for what it can do, compared to carrying around the rescue bird for the unilaser finisher, or having something like the Time Force V weapons, which are really ridiculously huge weapons, the V-Lancer does pretty much everything that you'd want in a PR season and more on top of it. The Power Ranger weapons are all unique, even if the ones that are really ridiculous. In a superhero show, you're going to always enjoy those moments where we have these ridiculous sized weapons, or the weapons that you have to do a billion things in order to combine it, because that's the fun part of PR, seeing all the cool action poses, the explosions, the cool gear, the cool tech that, you know, people invent. There's a lot of seasons out there that just have, you know, some weapons that be like, they could finish off pretty much any monster fairly easy. Like, why do we go through all these complicated giant weapons, or weapons that require 5 keys to insert in order to a finisher? It's just like, simpler is more better. And if you can give the weapon, you know, more unique features like the turbo navigator, the drive detector, that's what makes the weapons in PR fun. I think these 10 weapons overall would be useful in any PR season because they are simple, quick and easy to understand, useful, and they can all do a decent finisher that can get rid of most of the monsters in the season. But what do you guys think? What are your favorite weapons would you like to wield? And if you have a suggestion on what topic you would like me to do, leave a comment below and I may use it in the next video.